My name's Louise Brewood, and I've lived in Hackney for the last 62 years, that's my age, and I have spent the last 21, nearly 22 years living right next to London Fields Broadway Market. I'm probably very passionate about Hackney, very passionate about the local area that I live in, and am the lady that led the community to create Broadway Market, which is both a joy and a nemesis. It's home. Diversity was always something that I really enjoyed in class and culture and race. Differences in people and how they react. But more importantly, I think because I grew up with a lot of friends that are still in and around the area, got involved with the regeneration of Broadway Market partly because there was a whole bunch of us, and people, in fact there was people before me that had tried to get the council to do something and bring in London Farmers Market, because people wanted good produce, local produce, they wanted farm to fork style, they wanted traceability, which is my passion. I love cooking, I love food. I hated the fact that before Broadway Market started, that if you wanted anything that wasn't straightforward, good, basic veg, you had to go out the borough. So when there was talk about regenerating Broadway Market amongst some of the residents and the few handful of shops that was there, I was very passionate about that. I always love anything that's bottom up, community led, that the control is within the people for the people to work it out for themselves to what they actually want where they live. For me, that's always been the key. So we had a public meeting, and a little group of us, little 3 or 4 of us, decided to be the sort of lead party on this, from this local association that we was trying to grow, and then we started negotiating with the council, and basically it was a big fat no, rudely, from day one, and that went on for about a year and a bit until I told them that we were going to have a market anyway, and they couldn't stop us, literally. And this one makes me angry now, because the council are trying to trademark it for themselves.
Oh.
Yep, they are.
So something that they've never...
That they have no right to it, because they want to take it as their branding, because they're trying to pretend that the community didn't exist and where its roots came from. But they won't have it, because I know who. Because I know it was given. What we now call open source for the promotion of Broadway Market, not for the promotion of oneself. And it's not for anyone.
Who's it for?
It was for all of us, for the community, the businesses, the shops, and we're not talking just the market traders and the front of shops. The whole area was surrounded by artists, designers, little makers. I mean, lots of those have been crushed out now because flats have been built on their little areas and their cheap rents. So it was this was created to promote us, to make better business and promote local people. It was like, hey, we live here, we are quality, we are speciality, and we are very varied, and we have lots of variety. That was the beauty of it. That's what it meant. And how dare the council say we're going to trademark that when they don't even know what all that means. This all started in 2003, and the market was launched on the 8th of May 2004. There was nothing. We had no money, not a penny. We didn't have any stalls. We didn't even have any traders. And so that was it. And once I decide I'm going to do something, then I'm all out. But back then, there was a beautiful, strong community spirit. And there was a definite taste and passion for people who wanted to have food. I personally didn't want it to be just a food market. I didn't want it to be a high-end food market exclusively, because I'm mindful of my roots, I'm mindful of what I've grown up, I'm mindful of what people have and don't have, and I'm also mindful of how it can be perceived. And the balance of gentrification had just started kicking off in the area, so there was already that rebellious feel about the haves and have-nots and things, so I knew it was going to be a bit of a challenge, and that that is a beautiful moment. Absolutely beautiful. People are going to look at me and go, what beautiful, that was a terrible time. No, it was a beautiful moment in a terrible time. In a very, very difficult time, if a bit contentious. Because the actual market itself, by that stage, you know, this is a situation where development and greed was growing, when gentrification was happening to a point where it you know, gentrification is something that needs to happen to a degree to build and change areas. I said this, there's an interview of me way back in the first or second year, that there's nothing wrong with gentrification as long as you bring the community with you, and those that are benefiting from gentrification actually benefit the local community, which is what Section 6 is, or 60s, whatever Section 6 is on building and planning used to be, about genuine put back into the community. And that's what town planning is. That's what the heart of town planning should be. But this moment in time is an amazing thing, because this came at a time when the people that got behind this were long-standing people from Tony's Cafe. Tony the Juice, we called him, bless him, was so beautiful because it was theirs, they owned it, and there was no backlash to the market, which could have been and would have been anywhere else seen as the cause of the problem. Well, it wasn't. It had started before that, but the market got behind it. The market traders got behind it, and we got people from all classes, all walks, all backgrounds that got right behind trying to fight for Spirit and for Tony. And that was the good thing. I mean, they fed them. When they occupied it, they fed them. Yeah, I went round and collected everything from the market, used to take it in, we fed them. And the worst part was I had to stand neutral. Because I'd have been in there, but I couldn't be in there. Yeah, I had to stand neutral and be a balance. And it was a tough one. That's the Battle of Broadway. Building the community to create Broadway Market was already embedded there, because there was probably about 40, 50 residents and a couple of businesses that had been involved with some earlier projects under Hackney's regeneration programme, who were still sort of chugging away to try and revitalise the street as a shopping street. And I got involved in a community meeting because I wanted to be, as a resident, I wanted to have a say. I literally live right on Broadway Market. We got a little team together that focused on fighting the council to get them to agree to open the market with us, and take it from a community point of view. None of us expected to run Broadway Market. That didn't happen till afterwards, till the day we started. The idea was that we would get the council to do it. None of us wanted to work. It was just like, and none of us knew much about it, only from lived experiences. I particularly went to lots of markets and things and enjoyed people watching. So in all fairness, there was probably about 50 to 70 people involved, turning up to various meetings. So there was always 10 to 20 people for the year or so before that was, from the London Fields area, and a couple from over at Haggerston because we're on the border there. But the actual going towards creating what was Broadway Market, there was the committee of 12 at the time, and about half a dozen of us went off and all over the place and chose traders that we knew that were, so we had Richard Wildbeef from Devon. Well, I have nicknames for traders, but he actually, we call him Richard Wildbeef, but actually his business and farm is called Wildbeef. And so that was one that was brought in. We'd squabble because I wanted to have 3 cheese stalls. I wanted French, Italian and English. So I wanted specific small makers. We argued over the fact that I wanted, at the time, trainers was just kicking off as a big thing. Your bum hanging out tracksuits was just kicking off, and believe it or not, my son and some of his friends wanted to set up a stall selling these clothes. As they went to Hackney Free, they'd just not long come out of Hackney Free, they wanted to do that. It was a little group of them, and so I even fell out with people saying, no, that is what, if you look at the Broadway Market sign, which I'll tell you about in a minute, you see it says quality, speciality, variety. The variety for me was the key, because that was making sure we brought the balance to the community. So although I managed to have a team, the actual creation was mainly through my ideas and the way I saw it being developed to benefit everybody, but there was a core group of people behind it. Oh, my baby. Yeah, spirit. Yeah, spirit.
What are you feeling?
Sadness, frustration, anger. Cheat, rob, destroyed. Racism, this one is racism. I don't doubt that. And he was just a lovely, beautiful man. And a really, really genuine heart of our community.
What was his name?
Spirit.
Just to introduce him, yeah?
Yeah, everyone, your spirit.
Your spirit.
Just spirit. I miss sitting there outside his shop, talking about everything and nothing, talking rubbish half the time.
What was this shop?
It was tiny, it was only small. I mean, he developed the whole shop. He built it all himself. I mean, at one point, when he had it, I mean, he tried to buy it.
Oh.
And they cheated him. He turned up. He had his, you know, it's documented. It's not nice. But you could literally open the shop door, and there was the basement floor, and there was the sky. And that building, he created it, and he did all the work for it with his own hand. And he sold his fish, and he smoked his fish. And little bits of odd spirits and stuff and everything, but it was his character and his warmth and his root in the community and his lack of judgment. He was probably one of the few people that didn't make judgments of anyone. And I still see his son JJ, because he was really close friends with my son. One of the beautiful things about the beginning of Broadway was that it brought loads of local businesses, which involved lots of local residents and lots of local community together, and it created, just to begin with, quite a small pocket of employment. But it also created what I felt was more important at that early stage, was a platform for the local community to promote themselves, to promote their businesses, and for a lot of families to get involved. So things would be created that could create opportunities within jobs on the market, working with people. Actual businesses and traders would set up that were local and would be there. But also the actual connections and the way the market was run created platforms and connection lines to other organisations and businesses. We did things with the Prince's Trust. I worked very closely. I brought the Prince's Trust in. Some of our key traders that have been there from the first year, you know, I think there's 3 of them still left first, second year on Broadway. 2 of them were from the Prince's Trust that were nurtured businesses, and one of them was from the London Youth Organisation back then, but we had quite a lot. I mean, some of them did so well they moved on. I mean, the whole plan I had was to have a number of stalls where you didn't stay for more than a couple of years. The whole point was to get that establishment going, to get the public feedback, to get your product seen and identified and moved on. But also, you know, a lot of the businesses what I call very difficult to bring local people in, quite a few of them to start with, because the core was around food and it was about traceability. So they were pretty much one-man shows, or there might be one or two farmers that came themselves. But luckily, as they did well, they were able to employ people. And one of the things I insisted in the beginning was that they had to be a local person. And when I say local, I don't mean a long-standing local. I mean actual genuine people that were around. So we worked with the local associations in the area so we could let them know that there was this available or that available. We talked to the local youth club, who we then went on to sponsor, and where the local football club was, which was at the back. We talked with quite a few people. It wasn't all great. There was lots of negativity at times. It was a hard balance to keep the positivity going. But it meant that businesses, at the time, I think probably over half the shops were empty on Broadway. And over the first 3 or 4 years, those businesses began to open up, began to develop. And again, most of them were sort of either directly from Hackney or the boundary boroughs. So to me, that's fairly local. But now we have local, which can mean, I don't know what they actually mean by local anymore, because it's bizarre, really, some of the things they say local, because it isn't. And when you're impacted by something like a massive market, which it's developed into, you literally need to actually look after the people that are impacted from that, who will eventually be alienated to a degree. I nip up to the market because I always get flowers from the market, and there's 1 or 2 stalls I go early. I'm not very comfortable with it anymore. I don't see very many ordinary local people anymore. I don't see guys, and I don't mean just guys off the estate, because everybody thinks of that level. I actually mean, because London Fields actually is a 50-50 of, if you take away all the new developments, it was a 50-50 of middle class and working class, and quite a lot of poverty, and so estates and nice houses. So you needed that balance, because balance brings harmony. So we had that, and we created that. So we did things like, I was adamant that the people that built the stalls were going to be youngsters who were, in my opinion, walking a fine line. So the fine line was, they were going to end up in trouble. They were on the peripherals of gang and drug use, simply because of where they lived and the impact that was on them, and the schools back then, because they were rubbish, they were crap. The majority of the schools were crap. You're more likely to get offered drugs in school than you was on the street. And I've got 3 children, so I can testimony to make, say that's fact. So I wanted them to have the opportunity, it wasn't no big idea. It wasn't about, oh God, I want to pluck them out and make it lovely and whatever. I didn't want to belittle their experience. What I wanted them to do was just hang out, to talk, to chat to all sorts of people from all different ideas. So the guys that were doing the stalls had to learn to communicate. They had to learn to take a bit of criticism. They had to learn to speak up for themselves or explain stuff. And they had to work hard, and they had to get up and be out at bloody 5:30 in the morning. And so they got paid very well for that, because that was the reward. And lots of those young men that came out of, they weren't all out of the estate. There was kids that come from some good families, very comfortable families, but for one reason or another, certain elements of their life had led them down a path where they were isolated, afraid, or were again tottering on the edges of drug addiction and things like that because of their problem. So I wanted to mix the bag up and create good harmony, good bridges, good balance, good learning experience, skills that everybody needs, communication and respect. And that's what we achieved with all our young men on the market. And it went beautifully, and it balanced, and that led to more and more coming. And so for me, I think, yes, in the very beginning, the first 8 years or so, 7, 8 years or so, you really did have that balance of businesses coming, developing, and it spread slightly wider, don't forget, across the borough. So it started to go down, further down London Fields, around Metmore Terrace, you know, things started to open and happen. But unfortunately we became incredibly hip and trendy, which meant, yes, a lot of the people now are local, but they're people that come, a lot of them have come from everywhere to move in to be local and be part of the scene. So for me it kind of defeats the object that we haven't supported, we haven't taken the real community that needs that support. We've now got a community that come in that they're not really local, although they are, because they've moved in and they live there. You know, how long do you have to live somewhere to be a local? What I always say for myself is I'm a long-standing local, so you need to listen to what I say about the area because I know my shit, excuse my language, because I'm long-standing, and you should always respect and value someone's lived experience, especially where they are so passionately involved. So yes, today it creates jobs. Yes, today it creates new businesses. Is it at the heart of the community? Is it at the heart of local jobs? For local people who really have been around a long time, are we changing local lives of people who've struggled? No. So for me, and a lot of us that live there, it's a negative most of the time, apart from the few produces that we can get, which is getting less and less because it's being replaced by hot food. But I can't honestly say that I don't walk up there and get, oh bloody hell, I can't stand it, I hate it, it's horrible, it's crazy, it's too mad, it's this. But at the same time, I have to be honest, because that's me, and say I look at all the people walking up and down there and I know they're enjoying themselves, I know they're having fun, I know they're meeting friends, they're picking up this. I feel for a lot of the traders because they're not as happy, they're not as joyful, because believe it or not, the money being spent, unless your takeaway food, is not the same, because people don't come there to shop. Next time you walk down there, see how many people are carrying a bag full of shopping, or even a bag from a trader that's not hot food. So it's nowhere near as profitable as it used to be. It's got a lot of kudos. So for me, it's hard to say that it's still not a success. It's just the beast has changed massively, and I wish, and I knew that. I think the third year in, by the third year that we was in danger of this terrible tourism that would engulf us, and it worried me because we're not on a high street. We are a backwater away from everything, which is part of its charm. But I think negatively, I hate it. Positively, I love it. It's just, it's a lot as good as come, and I've seen a lot of good come, and I've seen a lot of good people achieve some beautiful things who otherwise wouldn't have had that life, may not have been here, may ended up in prison, may have had miserable lives. And also, more importantly, I've seen a lot of people do well and spread that and bring it back. So the positives do outweigh the negatives, really. So yes, I think markets create good community if the community is allowed to be involved.